Welcome to the Darkside Podcast.
Hi, and welcome. Bruce Schwartz here. This is the Darkside Podcast. I did a podcast on the MKUltra project that started back here in Montreal in the 1980s. It was a good podcast. Please do check it out. Now we're going to further the research and understanding inside of the secret agenda of mind control. This has been going on for many years, before some of us were born. Many of us in this world have encountered aliens. That's what some of us claim these events are, right? Some of us have encountered or gone through spiritual events that have caused us to relook at what reality is. Some people see things that other people don't see. And then when you try to talk about these events, you'll either be ridiculed, laughed at. It's all about mocking the person that sees or has this event that's different than other people. For whatever the reason, some people are better candidates, more than others, to be mind controlled. That we'd have to do very thorough research on exactly how it all started. What if I told you that those of you who declare having been abducted and taken what seems to be on a craft or elsewhere off of the planet, which there wouldn't be hundreds of thousands talking about this because there's not. What if I told you that if you did see an alien being or hybrid being or whatever you want to call it, something that does not look human, who's saying that that being is not mind control itself? One of the encounters of someone that had been abducted was on Joe Rogan podcast not too long ago, actually. I forget his name, it's Richard something. I'll leave it at that. But Richard had said that these aliens that he had encountered had no reactions, right? So there's something about that. When you see an individual, and he said he was screaming in the craft and they had no reactions, they were not nervous around him, they stepped back, but they were neutral in reaction. That there is some control over that. Whether it be mind control or not, or the way that these beings were developed, it remains, my God, it remains a subject that we could talk about probably for days and days and days. And every time we do a podcast and talk about the same subject, we could make like 20, 25 podcasts and they would all be different because there's so much that's revolving around these events, these fields of research, whether it be ufology or not. C.I.A. has been in the news, and in the news again even today. Not going to mention why, but we're going to look into the mind controlling. Who's doing it? How did it start? Where does the idea come from, this mind controlling? And I, for one, believe that the entire world is being controlled, that we are all being controlled, that the government is exceeding on different advanced levels, all in the goal to control the human entirely. First, it starts off by monitoring their whereabouts, then monitoring what they are doing. And this is just, we'll say it's just a theory, okay? Because it's a podcast, right? This isn't the news. I'm allowed giving my own opinion, and that way we'll keep it safe. But with my eyes, I can see what's going on around me. I see the control. I see the scary trends where people tend to all join in. Look, why do people at school, when you're back in school, someone's in a fight, someone's fighting someone, then a whole bunch of kids come along and they join in the fight and they start bashing this kid. What is it with that, right? Well, it's all about psychology. It's all about the physics of the human brain. We can get into so many interesting conversations about this. But is it possible to control the mind? I believe it is. Is it possible, and for what goal would it be to manipulate a human brain to do things for your own nefarious reasons? Once Project MKUltra got underway in April 1953, experiments also included administering LSD to mental patients, prisoners, and drug addicts, also prostitutes. People who could not fight back were the best candidates for this experiment. As one agency officer put it, in one case, they administered LSD to a mental patient in Kentucky for 174 days. During the Cold War, the CIA secretly funded mind control experiments on unwitting Canadians in a program codenamed MKUltra. The experiments laid the groundwork for modern-day torturing techniques, and victims and their families are still seeking recognition and justice. A declassified CIA document dated January 7th, 1953, describes the creation of multiple personality in 19-year-old girls. These subjects have clearly demonstrated that they can pass from a fully awake state to a deep, hypnotic, controlled state, and by telephone, by receiving written matter, or by the use of codes, maybe signals, words. Words, the control of those hypnotized, can be passed from one individual to another without great difficulty. It has also been shown by experimentation with these girls that they can act as unwilling couriers for information purposes. Now, this is huge, what I'm talking about. I put one of these podcasts up. They were taken down. But in reality, right here is the explanation for exactly what is going on right now in the world, without me having to get into, or even being able to or allowed to get into any of the details. So, repeating the last sentence here, it has also been shown by experimentation with these girls that they can act as unwilling couriers for information purposes. Under the provisions of the National Security Act of 1947, the CIA was established. One of the main areas investigated by this association, the CIA, was mind control. The program was motivated by Soviet, Chinese, and North Korean use of mind control techniques. The CIA originated its first program in 1950 under the name Bluebird MKUltra, officially began in 1953. In 1973, tipped off about forthcoming investigations, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of any MKUltra records. The Senate Intelligence Committee did find some records during its investigation on this matter in 1976. Senator Frank Church, who led the congressional investigations of the CIA's unlawful actions, said that the agency was rogue elephant operating above the law as it plotted assassinations, illegally spied on thousands of Americans, and even drugged citizens in its effort to develop new weapons for its covert arsenal. 1977, through a Freedom of Information Act request, 16,000 pages of mind control documents were found as part of the agency's financial history. That is how this information has been pieced together. A CIA document dated the 10th of February 1954. It describes an experiment on the creation of suspecting assassins. Miss, deleted name, was then instructed, having expressed a fear of firearms, that she would use every method at her disposal to awaken Miss X, now in a deep, hypnotic sleep. And failing this, she would pick up a pistol and fire it at Miss X. She was instructed that she would not hesitate to kill Miss X. Carried out these suggestions, including firing the unloaded gun at X after proper suggestions were made. Both were awakened. Miss X expressed absolute denial that the foregoing sequence had happened. You know, for those with attention deficit disorder, or for those with short attention spans that didn't understand what I just said to you, basically, they were able to make somebody hypnotically, through code words or signals or some type of technique, to be able to do something for them without the person themselves knowing who was asking them to do whatever they had to do, yet knowing that they had to pull the trigger. And after doing so, both of them did not remember the incident. You know, DARPA is also doing mind controlling projects. Just shooting that out there. And again, this podcast hopefully won't be taken down because, there's no guns in this podcast. I'm not showing any, I'm giving my own theories and opinions. But what do you think about today? And this is what I want to share with you. I know I'm going to have a hard time being able to share this with people, but it's what I believe. So aside from what I believe, let's talk a theory. I think it's the safest way for me expressing this and how I feel. Let's get right into it. What's going on today? Could there be anything that we are seeing today in the news, in the world, that's going on that could have been started or still undergoing with secret projects? Could anything today that we are seeing have been secret project related? And I'm talking about the shootings. I'm talking about the trans campaigns where all of a sudden now, men are dressing up like women and trying to do what? To do what? I don't know. But imagine if a mind control project started all of this. Just imagine. For me, it gives me chills right through my body from head to toe. As a matter of fact, it's probably something that I'm pretty close to being right about. Maybe it's something that started a long time ago, right? A long time ago. United States of America, not that long ago. Summer day, pedestrians, bicyclists together, crossing paths on the side of a very busy, eventful, festive day in the U.S., and suddenly a car veers and runs through them all and plows down, hurts, and maybe even kills some people. That person, I'm not going to name, was arrested. This is a true story. If we can consider what's being said on the news is real, that person did not know why he did it, had actually no intentions of doing so. But that interview finished quickly and was never seen again. Nor has the person ever been heard of again either. So I'm bringing that up because I'm making people think of, in theory, how many things that are happening today all around us, if not everything. Could any of that be secret project, mind controlling program, making us all function through codes, signals? And if you're really awake, you're going to understand that the internet, television, that, radio, that's all there to give us information. So if you're wondering where these programs would be infiltrated, just my guess, television, radio, go as far as saying Hollywood movies, which many of you are going to laugh because you all probably agree with me. Probably saying, yeah, Bruce, what you're saying right now is just basic common sense. But for some, it's not. For some, it really is not common sense. Everything we're seeing around us today could be a secret project, in theory, right? It's funny how the CIA took North Korea, China, and Russia's techniques in trying to control someone's mind or controlling someone to get information from that person, that is, withholding information from someone. The techniques didn't work. They said it themselves that the techniques did not work. The CIA themselves saw that the techniques had not worked, so they started doing it themselves to try to possibly better these techniques of mind controlling. It's all about back engineering, right? China does something, we want the technology, and then we're going to try to make it better. And of course, all to control the people. This is something that most of you know today, but it's still scary to think that some people do not know. So bringing someone to an office and mind controlling them. No, you don't have to call up the person and say, well, I'm going to control your mind. Stop by. I got a deal to make with you. They obviously invent something to get that person brought there on a story, a bum story, like maybe, I don't know, you're involved in a homicide or something. But then they try to integrate this technique, coding or signaling, for nefarious reasons so that they can do something for the CIA, right? But today, if you think on a bigger scale of how they could do that, all while remaining anonymous, in a very easy way through frequencies. You got electromagnetic pulse attacks that we're worried about from Russia, adversarial countries, China. Also the sun sending those electromagnetic pulses. So the electromagnetic power grid and all, that's, could be taken out. Well, it's the same thing, basically, I feel that they're going to be doing with our brains, is that certain frequencies are going to be signaled out, in increments, repetitively, like Morse code, continually, that could possibly change us some way, or maybe even make us do certain things, because it reminds me of the mind controlling projects and the way that they try to control somebody's mind by inserting a code or a signal or something inside of their minds. You could change a child's mind quite easily, and all evil parents know this. You can make your child racist. You can make your child hate anyone you want at a very young age, and this child will thrive off of the hatred, not even knowing why. Just the fact that the father's pushing it into the kid. Couple of smacks, slaps, and screams, and you drill that kid like you were an army sergeant at camp, recruitment, right? 3 months training, take their food away. Imagine what you could do to a person to get him to do something. To be able to control someone to do something for them. Like a parent would want to control his child, or a mother would control her child to be able to believe a certain thing. To change their idea. It's easy. They got young, innocent brains and minds in front of them that are thriving to learn and taking everything in. Children are imitating, especially at certain ages, most ages, imitating the parents all the time. Imitating. So imagine someone trying to control a child's mind by integrating a signaling pattern. And when I say signals and patterns, I could also be talking about what they're teaching in schools. It gets very serious. And again, those awake, you guys are following me right on. You're like, I get it. Everything's controlled. And there are patterns and subliminal coding and messages in everything. We know it's a fact that there was some in cartoons when I was young, and I'm sure there are probably much more today. Maybe even back when my parents started watching television. There was coding there. Television could have been invented just for that, as a matter of fact. You got these kids that love Superman, run up on their roofs and run off the end of the roof and believe that they can actually fly. How did that person convince himself? Now you have your answer of how they can do it. It's the brain. You have your whole story that you want to know the truth about, right, rolled out in front of you. It's been going on year after year after year after year. They study the brain. They find out what the brain's all about and how it makes the body function and what it makes us do and what the relationship of the brain is to emotions, which, by the way, scientists and professionals say that the brain has nothing to do with talent, creation, and emotions. It's somewhere else. It comes from outside of us. A type of frequency or something elsewhere, unknown. So when somebody jumps off a building, it's because there's something wrong with his or her brain. And if the CIA is able to locate that area of the brain that is causing that person to jump off the building, just one of my theories, imagine what they could do by playing around with someone's brain, either physically through operations or through signaling and coding. Now we have artificial intelligent programs that will help with that. Oh my God. We live in a matrix of physical illusion because everything around us is physical, right? And there's this idea of, perception of reality that is changing, where people don't understand what the difference is between truth and lies. It gets very dangerous. You get family members fighting amongst themselves, and everything goes haywire, and control for us is lost. Our control is lost. We have no control over our own bodies and over our own minds. So if you're able to back engineer the brain and control it, you'll be able to do anything you want. And I do believe once they control a certain country or two of people through mind control, they will be able to send them out as, Mad Max soldiers, just sleeping cells, waiting to be triggered by a certain code word or code name. They hear a certain code name, it's like POW, it triggers them, or they see, a group of people, and they were trained in their mind controlling to react as soon as they see a group of people to do a certain thing. I believe that really is what we're seeing today. Thanks for listening, everyone.